So here we are again, sitting with someone I've been searching for such a long time. It's Courtney, Freese. It's On the Whistle podcast. We are back. We are making opportunities for good people to talk to us. And today we are talking to, I'm going to put the word legendary status there, because when the national team was still in their infancy, there was Roger Links. Good morning, Mr. Roger Links from Cape Town. Country, a place I hope to one day live in. How are you?
Oh, wow. You must come. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you for welcoming me on your podcast, and yeah, it's an honor and a pleasure, to actually be invited onto your podcast. I know we've been missing each other a little bit, but yeah, no, I'm here and I'm excited, and yeah, it's good to know that the UK still has some South Africans out there, you know what I mean?
Well, I'll tell you something, Roger. I'm looking at you, and if you look at me, I've got a warm hat on. It is so cold out here at the moment.
I believe so. Yes, I saw the snow at one of the games.
Oh, Roger, it is cold, and it's the heating situation is causing such a problem. But Roger, let's start. I'm going to tell you, yesterday evening, you would not believe, as if I was preparing to talk to yourself.
Yes.
They were interviewing on Sky News, which is equivalent to your DSTV, Lucas Radebe, who is a legend at Leeds United. And he was talking about his career at Leeds United. And in the early part of his career, he had a massive injury to his knee, ruptured all his ligaments and his ACL, which didn't only impact on his career at Leeds, impacted at Bafana Bafana.
Yes.
And then at that time, he was partnering Neil Tovey in defense. I know the country was very worried. Who are they going to put in place? The door opens from nowhere in Cape Town, steps in Mr. Roger Links. Go ahead, sir. Tell us how that happened.
Wow, it kind of all happened a little bit late for me in my career, So a good part of my career was playing at an amateur club, just a local club in my area, and I was messing around there and just playing, but no real objective. When I was a bit younger, we used to have these coaches that used to come from England. They used to come to South Africa because I don't even remember. There was quite a huge amount of players that used to come from England and Germany that played in our old NPSL. So we had a coach, I think, Colin Bell. I think he was at City. I'm not sure. Colin Bell. He was. I think he played for England also. Anyway, so he came around. So my connection with England had already started from quite a young age already. Because so he had always given us some training, and I always thought, okay, there is a little bit more than just what we've seen in where we're growing up, So I think the seed was kind of planted there that, I was kind of interested in learning a little bit more and more about football. And lo and behold, one of the clubs, the top clubs that are in our area, I don't even know Batsuit, they actually asked me to come play for them. And, and from there, it just kind of spiraled. I think I was like 26 already at that stage, 26, 27, which is old, But in those, I think in about the space of 6 years, it's been phenomenal the growth that I've gone, that I got just through the exposure at playing at a higher level. So I think in my 29th year, I was at Spurs. I moved from Battersea to Spurs, and then I got picked for the national team. The first team actually that was selected to play got accepted back into FIFA. So I was part of that group, the first group, So as from Bafana Bafana, we didn't quite know, what was expected of us. The coaching was, I think, no disrespect to our current coaches that we had at the time, but I think we were never exposed to football in its glory, or its, its worldwide status, So we were kind of figuring our way in the darkness, But yeah, so it was a good learning, I'm going to say, experience for me. And also, coming from South Africa, it's kind of difficult being a colored player, the only colored player, the first one that was there. I know Duncan was there, but he came and he left, Duncan Crowley. So I think we were the only two, you know what I mean, at that stage that actually made in that squad. And it was a difference because, you know, the
You mind if I just
global
come
was
in
very
there,
strong.
Roger? You mind if I just come in there just for our
Yes, yes,
listeners?
yes,
Um, Colored being equivalent to mixed race in other countries
yes,
is another representative group in South Africa. Me myself being mixed race, being colored as
yes,
well.
yes,
So please continue.
yes, cool. Sorry. Yeah, so I made the team. It was that had its challenges, you know. But you know, when I finally got my first game, I think Shakes Mashaba gave me my first break. Um, you know, and it was really good, you know, to actually stand there, you know, and represent your country because I don't think, you know, I think a lot of players take it for granted that, you know, that previous to that moment being representing your country on a football field, there was a lot of turmoil that you've gone through, you know what I mean? You know, the country was in a real state, you know what I mean? So actually being selected because I know I represented a group of people that also needed representation, you know. So yeah, so it was a really big thing for me to actually represent my country, you know, and those people, especially what I call my people, you know what I mean. So yeah,
Well,
it
what
was
I
a big
will
thing.
say to you,
Yeah,
as I said to you earlier when you and I were talking off air, you getting into the national team
yeah,
was was such a joy for other people
yeah,
within the country who are mixed race.
yes,
We were so happy to, wow, because I know
yeah,
it was yourself, Duncan Crowe.
yes.
Was Andre part of that team at the time?
Andre came a little bit later.
Yeah.
He came a little bit later, and Mark Williams came a little bit later. Yeah, but I think Duncan and myself, we were the only two, you know what I mean, that originally made it,
And
you know?
also coming out of Cape Town, because at that
Yes.
time the national team was such a basically it was a Joburg team.
That's right, yes. That's right. It was it was a Joburg team, yes. Yeah. Yeah, no, you know, so it was a really good experience. I made some really good friends there, you know. So I mean, you mentioned Lucas and I were roomies at one stage, you know. And so when I got into the team, he also just about came in, you know. And he's been a legend. He still is such a gentleman, you know what I mean. So you know, and I think as he had a problem with his knee, I remember we had a game, a local game, we a home game. It was, I think it was a World Cup qualifier against Nigeria, and that week I was struggling with a slight pull in my hamstring, and I was like getting treatment, and on the last day, on the Friday, I was like, can I, because I know, you know, if you lose your position, that's it, you know what I mean? It's going to be it's gonna be very difficult to get back in. But you know, I did the honorable thing. You know, I said, listen, yeah, I won't be able to give my very best, you know, because of this injury. And you know, and I think after I lost my position there, I also had a little bit of a challenge with my club. So yeah, so that was my last, you know, sojourn with with the national team. But yeah, it was a great experience. Like I said, if it affected a few people's lives, I think maybe the brief period I was there, maybe I had some impact, you know.
So let's move the conversation into development. An article I read of yours of you are instrumental in youth development in Cape Town. Do you want to talk about one of the points you mentioned about the distraction for youths in Cape
Yeah,
Town
yeah,
and the disadvantages and why youth development football is so important for
yeah,
Cape Town?
yeah. Wow. I know we're having this conversation basically because we know what an impact football can have on the community and on especially youth. Because there's no other better way, I take it, that you have a kid in an environment where you can actually impart into him some life skills, you know what I mean? Some soft skills that I think can make a difference in his life. Because as you mentioned, I think in Cape Town, um, in this mostly in this whole Western Cape area, Western Cape region, is that we have kids they don't have any hope. Where I think we're going through a period, especially as a country, also where people don't have a lot of hope. You know what I mean? The government have not is not. the reason I'm bringing this up because it's related, you know what I mean, to what our youth is. Because we have kids that don't have parents, that don't have fathers, they have absent fathers, they have mothers that also don't look after them. So you have like generation back, you have a granny or a grandpa that has to look after the kids. So it's very seldom that you have a good solid family foundation where these kids come from. Because now what happens when you have this kind of thing is that they have different other fields of our communities coming in and stepping in, like gangsterism. Because the kids, young men, they don't feel part of something. Gangsters or gangs make them feel part of something. And they don't have any hope. They think that's the only way for them to go out. So football kind of helps a lot with that. If we can keep a lot of these kids off the streets and keep them in an environment where I think that they can have some hope, because that's the first thing they need. They just need hope. And football kind of will provide them with that hope. So I think that if I look at where our youth is going, there's still such a lot of them that's lost, you know. We mentioned just before we started the show is that you were mentioned that there's 3 clubs that PSL clubs that just stopped the academy setup. Now, I've been involved in academy setups all my life, you know. So when I finished playing professional football, I went into I did for a year, coached at senior level, but then I went into youth development. And I think where our academy systems are letting our kids down is that a lot of the good kids come from these disadvantaged backgrounds, right? That's where the talent is. But because there's only a few clubs that can look after that have such a big, how do I say, basket to pick players out of, that they can just take and drop into it. So now you take a kid out of a community that has been struggling, and he's now supposed to be the hope for his family, and then they cut him. You know what I mean? So he feels like his whole world has dropped out under him. So now I feel that in this way, I think academies have kind of left. They're letting our kids down. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Would you say, Roger? Would you say,
Yeah.
sorry to come in, and I
No,
just want to add
please.
to your point, because like I said to you, in the Premier League, I know of 2 professional clubs, Brentwood and Aston Villa, that a few years ago cut their youth development teams, don't have them, have found it an area where a lot of money is currently wasted. But are you feeling that there's almost a responsibility to have these, not just for bringing through footballers, but saving the youth?
I think it's needed, but I think the focus of academies are wrong. I think the focus of an academy is to produce the next Messi, or to produce the next Tyron Minks, or to produce the next Saka. You know what I mean? So that is their focus. And I think if I look at what Aston Villa may be doing, I can see what it is, because you throw in millions and millions of pounds into a structure where you're hoping to find one player. So this is my opinion, and this is where I think, where you look at the broader scope, I think, is where your community clubs come. Because in a community club, you have a lot of dads, you have a lot of moms, you know, you have a structure in there, you have kids that all of them are not going to really be the best, but they form part of the game, because without them, we don't have a game. So I think from a professional perspective, we always look at the elite of it, but we don't understand that on grassroots level, without those kids and those dads and those referees and those, we don't have the game, you know. So I'm at a club at the moment. We're trying to do something where we can. So we've got a connection already to a school, which is like an online school. So we're trying to take like kids, like good kids, and say, okay, go to school, and then we'll try and give you some specialist training, but also you train with a club, you know. You train with a club, you're part of the community, you're part of the family, you know what I mean? So, because I feel like, I mean, I know I've read about it, that in the UK, a lot of kids are suicidal when they leave. There's been quite a few suicide attempts of players, and, you know, some of them are committed already. So kids are coming out of a community, for I don't know how much years, 6 years, they've been told you're the best thing. You're the best thing. You're going to be you're going to be the savior for England or for South Africa. And then all of a sudden you get cut the whole world because you lived in the football bubble. And I think if we can take kids out of the football bubble and show them there's much more to life than just actual football, maybe there'll be some hope for them. Because what happens is now if a kid doesn't make it, he thinks, oh, I don't want to take the chance anymore because there's already such a little hope. Will it risk having the risk of having to fail at something that he thinks he can maybe be good at? I think we need to look at how that whole academy thing is actually set up, and we're trying to do it a little bit different here, and hopefully we can make a bit of change, because I think it works through a network, you know what I mean? Say we have a talent which we think he can maybe he's got a chance. Let's see if he can do it. We can through the network just try and push him. So you don't really need an elite academy, or you need a football club or a PSL club or a professional club in order to push them through. You can through the network,
Let's come back to Bafana, the current Bafana coach, Hugo Bros, who's in the country, who has been highly critical of some of the points you just mentioned about not being ready, the players not being at the level.
Yes.
What do you see as the future with the current Bafana Bafana setup, heavily weighted by Sundowns players?
Yes.
What do you see is our challenges, and what should be our expectations be for the future?
I think the coach, the national team coach, I think he's made some really valid points. I know it can be very controversial. I think he steps on a few people's toes because it is, you know what I mean? If I see an apple all the time, everything else is an apple, If you bring an orange in,
I like that saying. I like that. I like that saying. That's great. You gotta coin that. You gotta put a tweet out there. That's my saying.
So you bring in, so now all of a sudden you have an orange, and someone say, no, there's not just apples there, there's oranges there. And let's look at it, because I think it's a frustration from a lot of people in the industry, in the football industry, is that we're just not there, and I think that Sundowns, with all its money, they buy the best players. Now, for me, having the best players in the country sitting on the bench can be very, I think it's not really good for the country, because I think the more you play, the better you get, So you will have like a top centre back that's sitting on the bench because you've got another top centre back sitting there, and you've got to get some game time. So yeah, I think in a way, I think Sundowns have been good for the country. I think they've been good with all the success they've had on the continent. I think they've really. I just think maybe it's the other clubs got to be a little bit more adventurous. I think risk a little bit more, do something, to catch up to Sundowns, because Sundowns is hogging the market, you know what I mean? And they can, not just with money, but also with the success that they've got. So because if I say, listen, I can give you an X amount of money, but also I can expose you to a bigger market, you know what I mean, into Africa, I'm going to take that, you know what I mean? So the challenge we have with the younger players.
I agree with you. And there's examples out there where the coin can really flip. It's not always the norm that should be in charge. We look at the Leicester City situation in the biggest league in the world, where you have Man City with all their funding, and little known Leicester City created that change. You look in the current PSL, when I played in it, Manning Rangers at the time, that's where I was. We had nothing, absolutely nothing. I won't even lie, we didn't even have training kits. But we had all these big teams, Kaizer Chiefs, Mamelodi Sundowns, and I remember Gordon Ingerson, the dictator he was, is we just need to be fitter, work harder, and don't concede goals. 3-point plan. 3-point plan.
Yes.
you know,
Kind of
so
work there.
it can happen. It can
Yes.
happen. So I
Yes.
agree with you. The teams need to risk this.
Yes. Yes. I think we it's going to be a little bit controversial, but I think our identity, we need to really have an identity because we're always talking about South Africa and we this and we that. But if you look at Argentina, you know what you're going to get, right? You know Brazil, you know what you're going to get. You look at England, you know what you're going to get, you know. So I think Germany, you look, Germany is interesting for me is because the last two World Cups they haven't done really well. So for me, I can already see they're probably going to shake up something. But they'll do it on the grassroots level because they know what they do on the grassroots level affects the national team. Our focus is always top down, and it should be bottom up. You know what I mean? Because I think if you invest more on your grassroots, you're going to have a stronger national team. You know. But now we do is we focus downwards. We say, what does our PSL team look like? How good is our PSL team? You know, are they good for the national team? But I think even at that level, our PSL is kind of there's a lot of deficiencies in place. Because I've been kind of lucky in that when I was at Ajax Amsterdam, I'd spent some time at Amsterdam. And you can see from a young age already at Ajax Amsterdam, the kids are already taught from a very young age, you know what I mean? What they instilled in them discipline and the way, the philosophy of the club, the way that they play, you know, the mentality. Our kids don't have that kind of foundation, you know. So we picking kids up at on a lower at a club level, or we're picking them at 20, 21, or 18, 19 to 21, and then they reach 24, and we say they're a good young player. 24, it's please. I think at 24 years old, you sign in probably your big contract, you know, your pro contract. So our age grouping, I think it's way out of sync with what the rest of the world is. So if you look at a 16-year-old and a 17-year-old, and he's showing a lot of abilities already, he should be pushed into that space and invested in such a way that when he reaches the pro ranks at an earlier age, he can make a difference. And you can see it happening. You have the the Bellinghams and all those kids coming through, the next generation of young kids coming through, but they've already been prepared. Wow, you know what I mean? So I think that is where we struggle in a little bit because it's at 24 years old, you can't call a kid a player, a young player anymore. He must be a seasoned pro already at 24 years old. So yeah, so that's our challenges that we have in this country is that we have to start looking from the bottom up and say, listen, yeah, this is our plan, you know, everybody's got to follow this plan. Not you have your different regions doing their own thing. You will have maybe South of Cape Town have their own vision. You have Gauteng, you know, South of Gauteng doing their own thing. Then Popo, Eastern Cape, and then they're saying we're supposed to get good results. We won't, you know. I think this is the reality. We're not going to make much of a difference on the continent and getting into world tournaments like World Cups and stuff like that if we don't start doing something different. We cannot do the same stuff over and over. So we got a new head of football, you know, technical director that's now been in place, you know what I mean? That's been appointed in SAFA. Let's see what comes up, you know what I mean? I'll be interested to see because I'm really quite interested because, you know, I'm in a unique area, Cape Town. You know, we have like our the way we play football is a little bit different to the rest of the country, you know what I mean? So we have a little bit of nuggety stuff, and we got, you know what I mean? We always have directness about our play. But those are skills. I think it's if you look at let's just look at the 1996 African Cup of Nations team. They were a good blend of different talents, you know, from different areas, you know, different regions, and we got success. I think if I look at it, that's probably the model. You know what I mean? If you had some kids from the Western Cape, some players from the Western Cape, and they brought something different, you know, from Gauteng, and I think it was just such a beautiful blend. You know what I mean? But I think we've lost that kind of blend. You know what I mean? That maybe our scouting, our talent identification is a bit wrong. You know, I think that's a big focus nowadays in any club, talent identification.
Thank you so much for being with us today. You've been very gracious with your time. It's been a pleasure sitting and listening to you, your thoughts. We hope to be able to welcome you back again. onto our
It
show.
will be really good.
But I just want to say thank you so much for your time today.
Well, thank you so much, Courtney. Thank you for having me. It's been such a blessing, to be able to speak a little bit about what's on your heart. You know what I mean? It's really good. Thank you so much.